Let's do it. Bro pissed his legs. Yeah, that's the fit. Okay, chill out. Yeah. Fit goes crazy when fit goes crazy like I'm looking for clues, okay? Fit goes nutty like I'm out here finding clues. Do you understand? Exactly. Fit goes so goddamn hard. I have a sidekick and we're investigating crimes. Do you understand me? Anyway, shit got me solving crime out here. But you don't appreciate it. You don't recognize greatness. It's fine. Y'all are clueless. Get a fucking clue. You know what I mean? Anyway, Super Bowl scripted. We'll be talking about that. Beyonce on Twitch. Well, I guess talk about that too. Let me write this out and blast off real quick. Super Bowl is scripted and Biden admits it. Beyonce's on Twitch. Marc, Lamont, Hill will be on later to discuss Rafah bombing and Israel ad on Super Bowl and more. Later we play this game. We'll like set up this fucking lobby without really fully confirming whether we would all do it or not, and everyone just kind of went along with it. But we're apparently playing this game called Infinite Craft. I don't know what it is. Not pirate game. Please practice it. I'll learn how to play it like in before we actually play it, okay? No, not Helldivers. I discovered drill on Infinite Craft. I'm proud of Austin for coming out as gay on the pod. Did he? Did he come out again? Oh yeah, new episode of the pod is out. It's Monday. I hope you guys liked it. We couldn't unfortunately do it after the Super Bowl. Like I petitioned hella hard. Contraband Police will never be played again. I'm going to fucking laser you, okay? I'm going to put you on a spaceship. I'm going to send your ass to fucking Mars. Don't ever do that, okay? Gaming comes. That does not mean that like I'm quitting Contraband Police, which is like an easy ass game to pick back up at any point, okay? It's not like I dropped Contraband Police. It's crazy that like when I do gaming, when it rains, it fucking pours. And then you still got dudes who are like, well, I like the other game you were playing. It's like, okay, well, we're going to get back to that. What about AC6, you fraud? See, that's the perfect example of a game I very openly said I'm not going to get back to. You know what I mean? You can tell. Austin saying you pause more than the Super Bowl is the realest thing that's ever been said on the podcast. Fuck, true. My wife really enjoyed the Contraband Police. She thought you were funny. Thank you. Can you cover this if you have time? Another Indian student was hate crime in Chicago. Wait, what? I turned into a gaming frog because of GTRP. Yeah, GTRP is dangerous though. Because like GTRP is deeply addictive for both the streamer and also the audience. Farmers protest? No, I don't care about that. We always, when we talk about farmers, okay, here's what I will say. When we talk about farmers, no, I love agriculture. Everybody thinks about like the actual like servant class, the peasant class of farmers, right? Like the dudes who are oftentimes like migrants on a really shitty visa, like migrant laborers, or literally straight up undocumented workers. Like those aren't the people. Okay, the people that like own the farms are the people that are generationally wealthy, have like a shit ton of assets, right? And they're still working. They're still owner operators for the most part. But like half the time these guys, especially ones that haven't been completely wiped out and turned into like one big mega corporation, half the time whenever farmers are like getting mad at shit, it's like, oh, especially in Europe, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe the government shut off like some of our subsidies So we are now not turning profit at the same fucking clip that we used to. Or they're like, I can't believe the government has decided to, I don't know, put forward some like methane emission initiative that that made it so that like we have to fucking suck up some of the cow farts or whatever. And it's like they get so mad and then they start putting manure everywhere. Like everybody always is like, oh yeah, this is the real working class revolution. Like, why don't you fucking cover it? It's like, no, man, I hate to do this. Well, I don't actually, but in most circumstances, the dude working at the Starbucks with the septum piercing, okay, who's they, them, non-binary, that's a real working class motherfucker right there. That's like the actual working class person. Farmers on the other hand are LARPing as like working class people. People are so aesthetics focused that they unironically think, crazy ass take. No, that's not a crazy ass take. That's a valid ass take. Okay? People literally hyper focus on the aesthetics. Like they'll oftentimes laugh about like grad students that are revolting. Okay? They're doing a revolt or whatever. And everyone's like, freaking gay ass grad students, dude. Freaking gay ass grad students, dude. Like, I can't believe that these grad students are like fucking, what do they want? Like, they want to unionize for what? To make everybody in the union have like 1 day of butt sex? But them, you know, that kind of shit. But it's like, no, those guys are like literally workers. And not only that, but they're also getting absolutely fucked. There's a difference between the guy who's on the field and the actual farmer who owns the farm. Now that farmer, and it varies. That farmer could be an owner operator. Okay. That farmer could absolutely be putting in the goddamn work. And that farmer still gets fucked by mega corporations like Monsanto and also John Deere and many other aspects of the agricultural production causes a secondary exploitation upon small business owners as well. But like farmers in that regard are basically not the dudes you think of when you think of farmer. It is a term that casts a very wide net, all the way from the Guatemalan migrant laborer that's working for like $10 a day with a fucking that like by hand has to like grab all the avocados and put them in a bag, okay, versus the dude who's owned a generational farm with like a tremendous amount of output, right, and has millions and millions of dollars of assets, right? And then there's also the third degree of like the CEO guys that own the farms that don't even fucking actually farm at all, personally, not owned and operated, that are also fucking over the owned and operator farms as well. I don't know how else to describe it, but I think a lot of people basically think that like when they fantasize about farmers, they think of like the guy, the dude who's in the field hand, basically the dude who's like in the mud. Okay. And as far as like class analysis goes, it's ironic because like the owner operator farmers are also getting shafted half the time by much larger mega corporations. Like I mentioned, John Deere with no right to repair and like incredibly exploitative contracts for like hardware and software that you're literally purchasing, but you're actually technically renting out. There's a lot of issues in the farming space, right? But they don't get mad at that as much as they get mad at like the government reducing the amount of subsidies that they give to the farmers, or even like any kind of like carbon emissions or any kind of like methane emissions protocols that they decide to run with. Ultimately, though, like I said, the notion of like these city folk have never seen a farm in their life, brother. They just think food spawns in Erewhon. Okay, but like even those who do know the farms ultimately, or the farmers ultimately, don't fully understand it from a class analysis. It's also very different. Like when you think about like the Indian farmers. Oh, I thought you were talking about the European farmer protests. Oh, he's saying the Indian farmers. Never mind. My bad. Yeah, this is very different. Indian farmers are like straight up fucking communist party. I thought you were talking about the fucking like in the Western world when you see farmers protests, which have been going on in the EU, by the way. I thought that's what you were referencing. That's why I was like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not going to talk about this again and again and again. It's like half the time it's like reactionary dudes that are like anti-vaxxers or whatever. Yeah. Indian farmers are just like straight up fucking Maoist and shit. Hassan pretends to be working class. I don't pretend to be working class at all. Oh my God. Stop with this. Nate Shot's take on the Biden meme, please. Wait, what did he say? What Nate Shot had a Biden meme take? I love when content creators get into like the political commentary space a little bit. It's always fun for me at least and funny, but everyone takes it super seriously and they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe they said this." It's like, bro, just take it with a grain of salt. Okay. It's not that serious. He's getting cooked, Lamont. Oh no. Okay. I can't wait to see it. Nate on POTUS? Wait, he was live? He gave a live take? No. Oh, that's awesome. Hey, my bad. To the chatter who was asking about the Indian farmers, to the Indian farmer asking chatter, I thought you were talking about the European farmers. They've been dumping like manure and shit everywhere for like the past month or so, and also they've been dumping like manure and stuff. I don't even know what the exact reasons are. The concession French farmers got is that they get to use more harmful pesticide. Yeah, it's always like anti-safety shit, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, anti-climate change initiatives, anti-safety initiatives, or it'll be like they protest they protest the lamest shit in the EU and also in like Canada and in America too for the most part. And it's rarely ever like the actual field hands, you know what I mean? Like the real farmers should probably be out there protesting the top of the hour ad break, because that's what the working class gets hit with, right? Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, and the working class doesn't want to see the 3-minute ad break, right? And they don't know how they can avoid it. And like the reality is you can avoid it by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. I'm going to talk about the Super Bowl experience now. Okay, we're going to get into it. I blasted off already, right? I think. I forgot. Did I blast off already? I did. All right. Well, French people riot no matter what. All French people just love a giant riot. Yeah. Anyway, here's the 3-minute ad break now. I'm a small farmer myself. We do exist. Try not to generalize so much. Wait, I just described that there are different degrees of farmers. Like, I literally did that. I did that already. I did the I'm a small meme farmer. No one speaks for me. I'm a fucking humble farmer myself. I farm subscriptions at the top of the hour. Nobody's talking about my fucking plight. You know what I'm saying? It's fucked up. Anyway, Andres Danta, thank you for the 5 get the subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour, though. Okay, we have farmed enough at this point. So, where's the Nashot tweet? Do people just stop listening to you when you talk? I think people just get mad. And then they just, and when someone gets mad, especially when there's like a lot of, when someone gets mad, when they hear a lot of the same preconceptions, like misconceptions rather, about their particular field, they assume that the guy is just repeating the same like false notion or whatever. And then it makes it harder for them to tune in and like fully grasp what the other person is saying. Right? It's a perfectly valid, perfectly normal thing. So then they just like zone out, get mad, hyper focus on the one part of the conversation and totally forget the second half of it. And that's fine. Nate Shot. This is the weirdest shit I've ever seen on Twitter and it's not even close. Get him out. I like that. Wait, he's getting cooked for this? He's got 27K likes. What are you talking about? Wait. That's not getting cooked. Be honest, you had a lisp. I saw your 2-3-year-old videos I don't know why people used to say this all the time. I think it's because of the this is like a super old meme. Um People used to say this. I think it might have been the microphone or something. I don't know. People used to say this at TYT. No, literally, that was like a thing at TYT that my haters used to say. They were like, "Oh, you have a lisp." Like, first of all, what if I have a lisp? Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Why would that be like an own? I thought it was pretty funny. Ludwig pressing him. This has nothing to do with Trump. Assuming because I don't like Biden means I'm supporting Trump is exactly that, an assumption. Biden is the leader of the free world meme about the Super Bowl while the U.S. is falling apart. When you start paying taxes and see this is the guy that is running your country, it drives me nuts. I don't care if it's social media manager. I don't want to be... Wait, his take isn't even that bad, to be honest. I don't want the account, him, or anyone representing his office farming impressions to make it light of the incredible amount of work to be done to fix all the issues of the country. It's beyond frustrating, and I don't care if you agree, or anyone else for that matter. That's so funny that people are mad. I think the only part of this that's like silly is that it is such an American take to be like, I don't really care about the genocide that's ongoing, but I do think that it's like fucked up that he's making a mockery while he's the president. You know what I mean? Like the president, the institution is supposed to be one of reverence. Like it is a very fun. It is a very fun moment. It's a very fun take overall. Right wingers correlate lisps with being gay. That's the reason why your haters say that to you. Yeah, but like, again, so what if I'm gay? like gay, straight, doesn't matter. In the most insane fantasies that any right winger has of having a girlfriend, they're still gonna want to fuck me. Okay? So it don't matter. Gay, bi, straight, they better pray to God I'm ace. You know what I mean? It's just like, dude, I will fuck your imaginary girlfriend in Canada. I will fuck your imaginary boyfriend. I'll fuck them all. It's so dumb. Wait, hold on. What's your... Okay. I'll tell my partner all the time how I want to climb you. Okay, don't say that to your partner. He's gonna get jealous, and then they're gonna make you not want to watch the stream. Do you think Nate Shop would say all this for the stuff Trump used to say on and do on Twitter? I don't know if you know him, but I wonder. Probably. I wonder if he has. I assume he might have even said it. Wait, let's see what his real time. I don't care if anybody
agrees with me, bro. As a man who is a citizen of the United States of America, I don't want the president tweeting out memes where he has these red lasers in his eyes. Meanwhile, we got things just happening all over the world. I want a strong leader who's not fucking farming impressions on Twitter in a very pivotal time.
No, I love this. I love this. He's like, I think a lot of people on Twitter will get mad at this, but this is so surprisingly normal of a take. Okay? It's not like the correct take, obviously, and it is like silly to get mad at this when there's like a million things to get mad at Biden over. Okay? But this is the average lib take, I think. And I don't mean like average liberal who watches MSNBC or like the average liberal who who is on Twitter or whatever. I'm talking like just a normal dude who browses Twitter, doesn't give a shit about politics. This is the same exact opinion that like so many apolitical people had about Trump. Okay? I think you guys are failing to understand. Not everyone gives a shit about politics in the same way that we do. Okay? Not everyone gives a shit about politics in the same way that we do. This is such a... Why are you assuming Nate Shott's a liberal? Because every single fucking person in America is a liberal, even those who vote Republican. America is a liberal country. I mean liberal in the political theory, okay? Not liberalism in the way that it's been bastardized by like American culture or whatever. I'm talking like, you know, capital L liberalism. Every American is a liberal. Every conservative is a liberal. Every Democrat is a liberal. Most people are liberal, okay, in this country. There is a neoliberal monoculture that is over every other like minutia. Okay, over there is this everything that we do, we add on like additional aesthetics to make it seem like we have differences in opinion or whatever. But ultimately, everyone is basically a liberal at the end of the day. So liberalism is, for those of you who don't know, liberalism obviously centers around protecting private ownership of property, private property rights, that sort of thing. And then it's basically politics designed on top of it. It is relatively progressive. If the prior formation is feudalism, right? it's progressive for, you know, the 18th, 19th century was very progressive, very good. Good step in the right direction. Definitely kind of outdated for now, for our time, our day and age. But hold on, I'm also like explaining this while simultaneously adding Marc Lamont Hill. Let me get here really quickly. Okay, where the fuck, bro? Oh god, the new Discord is so ass, brother. God damn. Oh, here it is. The ad friend. I think I got it though. Okay. Neoliberalism is status quo in the capitalist class or the ruling class of society. Yes. But yeah. Overall, it's pretty funny to get mad at this. And I feel like this is the most like apolitical center-left approach to politics from afar. And the most apolitical center-right approach was literally saying the same thing about Donald Trump. Ultimately, though, who gives a fuck? It's the least significant part of the Biden administration. I think it's tone deaf, especially because how and when he tweeted it, but I don't think that's what Nate Shot's talking about anyway.
For our country, bro. Like, I want to know this motherfucker's behind closed doors working his ass off to make the country better, not farm.
Again, see? That's what I mean. He thinks like Joe Biden is the one who's fucking tweeting. Or even Joe Biden is the person who's like single-handedly, oh! What did you do? Obama! All right, watch out. She almost killed Obama. Yeah, the idea that like Joe Biden is like doing anything at all is pretty funny. The idea that Joe Biden, even if he wasn't tweeting, is like technically secretly running the country, also funny, not so secretly.
Farming Super Bowl impressions. That's it. I just want to get that out of the way. That's his interns. My point is, brother, that office has a million other things to worry about right now than farming impressions on Twitter. That's it.
I want to know what he's like, what his anger is though. Cause he's like, someone says, Nate Shot being a Trumper. This has nothing to do with Trump. Assuming because I don't like Biden means I'm supporting Trump is exactly that. An assumption. Biden's the leader of the free world, memeing about the Super Bowl while the U.S. is falling apart. When you start paying taxes and see this guy is the guy running our country, it drives me nuts. I don't care if it's a social media manager. I don't want the account, him or anyone representing his office farming impressions, making light of the incredible amount of work to be done to fix all the issues of the country is beyond frustrating. And I don't care if you agree or anyone else for that matter. Ludwig said, what do you think are the main problems the U.S. is facing right now? Is this really a question that needs to be asked? Are you trying to make content out of this? From a non-Yankees perspective, this is a bizarre question to ask. Lol. I cannot think of a more normal question in response to a less interesting topic for content. First of all, speak for yourself, bitch. I think it's an interesting topic for content. What the fuck? Chill, dude. This tweet still has the same sentiment, right? Insane country? Yeah, exactly. The irony, of course, is that there are correct reasons to be like Biden is like senile, but the Democratic Party administration, like the Democrats are doing a horrible job overall, both in its domestic affairs, but also in international affairs in general. Like there are so many real things to get mad at, but it's always funny when like I see someone who is relatively apolitical, but like obviously has class interest and is like a rich person get mad at a thing like this. You know what I mean? But from the completely irrelevant framework of like, well, I don't like the aesthetics of this. It's the same principle behind people getting mad at Trump tweeting, right? Poll came out today that 89% of voters are concerned about Biden's age. Yeah. So that's the other part of this, by the way. That's the other part of this. Like, those are the exact same people that also get mad at Biden's age for understandable reasons. Insane country where it's, and Kayvon said, insane country, friend of the show, Kayvon, where its leader is posting this while a military, his administration is armed to the teeth, is bombing 1 million Palestinians. Okay. When you are rich, there aren't more pressing issues to interrogate than what's being tweeted. Yes. Friend request. Joe Biden posting that while McDonald's employees are winning their own Monopoly game. What? This is a Matt Christman take, but like the capitalist machine in America has been running itself for like the last 30 years. The presidency can only really be in office. But that's not a Matt Christman take at all. That's a take that almost anyone with like anyone beyond a novice level of reading of politics understands that it's almost apolitical to approach it. Capitalists look at that and go, that's why it works. Socialists look at that and go, that's why it's fucked up. But it's a constant. Most people who understand how things work understand that. So can you explain what the picture is supposed to be in? I'm so confused. Oh shit, I forgot. God damn it. Sorry guys. I forgot that there's a lot of normies here. So I don't know where to begin, but I guess early on there was a meme called Dark Brandon. Okay, friend of the show, Edinger Mentum, claims he invented it, but actually there's a darker past for Dark Brandon. It actually came out of China. Presenting Joe Biden, the American president, as this scary figurehead that actually is doing a tremendous amount of work that is like playing into the right-wing conspiracies of Joseph Robinette Biden. It was basically making fun of Joe Biden and making fun of the right-wingers who think he's this like terrifying figure. Okay, but why Brandon? They call him Brandon, which, by the way, the image description literally says Dark Brandon, which means that the intern straight up called Joe Biden Brandon. Brandon is a I guess pejorative for Biden. It started off with a NASCAR race where a dude named Brandon, I forget what his name is, he actually won the race, and then everyone was screaming "fuck Joe Biden" in the crowd, and then the anchor was like, "Oh, see, they're saying let's go Brandon," and then the conservatives immediately jumped on it, and this like dominated the media cycle for a week or maybe a month even, and that's where the "fuck Joe Biden" FJB / let's go Brandon meme became a real thing. Okay, here it is.
Thank you to all of our partners. Oh my God, it's just such an unbelievable moment.
Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear the chants from the crowd, let's go Brandon. Brandon, you told me you were going to kind of hang back those first two stages and just...
Like, they're very clearly screaming "fuck Joe Biden," and then the reporter says like, "Oh, let's go." They're saying "let's go Brandon." Okay, the more you explain it, the more I understand the previous normie reaction. Yes. So there's two different memes merging here. Okay, so the Dark Brandon meme basically came from that, where we were, the red glowing eyes scare is a funny meme in and of itself. If it was 2016, the eyes mean he's racist and alt-right. If it's 2021, he's into crypto shit and GME. And if it's 2024, he's a Zionist with a Ukraine, Taiwan, Hong Kong flag in the display name. Yeah. So basically, when you hear someone say like "let's go Brandon," still to this day, they're just trying to say "fuck Joe Biden," but in a, I guess, polite way, which is stupid. but because you can just say fuck Joe Biden instead of that. But in any case, that's where that meme comes from. And then they basically leaned into this. Like, the older Biden has become in the eyes of the public, and the older Biden has become physically, right? The more they've like leaned into this meme of like Dark Brandon. Now, it doesn't make sense though when you're the one doing the meme, because the origination of the meme itself was to make fun of Joe Biden and also to make fun of those who think Joe Biden is this like terrifying figurehead who was like a communist, right? Like Joe Biden the ultra, you know? Why? Because he put forward like a bipartisan spending bill, right, on infrastructure or whatever. And so this iteration of the meme is basically it came right after the Super Bowl ended, right? And people were claiming, the right wing was claiming that Travis Kelce is sponsored by Pfizer, and Taylor Swift, who had previously endorsed Joe Biden against Donald Trump in the past election cycle, is a 34-year-old liberal woman for understandable reasons. And so the conservatives were trying to basically turn this into like a culture war issue, right? Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are liberal, pro-vaccination, and pro-Joe Biden, whereas like, I guess God's team is the freaking 49ers for some weird reason. Even though it's a San Francisco team, so that doesn't really make sense. But I guess like their quarterback is like a dude who loves Jesus. So, so that's all it took for them, right? Purdy. So everyone was saying like Joe Biden is going to rig the Super Bowl. Joe Biden is going to rig the Super Bowl. I myself obviously leaned into it as well because it's really funny to think that like the Joe Biden would rig the Super Bowl or that the Super Bowl was rigged. And oh yeah, Nick Bosa also loves Trump too. Nick Bosa is just like incredibly racist. He's very hot, but also incredibly racist. So there's that too. Ultimately though, yeah, Bosa is the most racist in the league. Yeah, dude. I saw the way he was going after Patrick Mahomes, okay? He would literally leave his own guy. Stop covering his own guy because he was like, nah, dude. I need to kill him. Okay? He sees a quarterback that's not like full white, it's over. He wants to kill him because he's racist. Anyway, Maga Bosa. He's a defensive end. He's not there to cover people. I mean, there was literally moments where he would drop the person that he was on and just go straight. He would drop the person that he was on and go straight for Patrick Mahomes, leaving the person that he was holding completely wide open. He's supposed to. Well, okay. Well, he failed. Anyway, doesn't understand football. Regardless, let's continue. His job is to hit the quarterback. No, I know he's on defense. Okay, let's continue. That's besides the point. We're moving on from Nick Bosa memes back to the pocket that I am familiar with. So, because I'm going to have, I'm memeing, and everyone is getting very serious about it. I'm going to have Marc Lamont Hill in like 30 minutes, and I want to like cover some of this stuff before we get to him, okay? Because we're going to talk about like the actual serious stuff. So I think I did a relatively decent job of trying to explain this to the normies who are like completely unfamiliar, completely oblivious about this meme or whatever. But yeah, that's where the Dark Brandon meme comes from. And then the Democratic Party has like leaned into this meme, even though everybody fucking thinks Joe Biden is very old, and that's like actually a major problem for Joe Biden. But as the right wing leading up to the Super Bowl was claiming that the Super Bowl was going to be rigged, and that like Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were going to come out after Travis Kelce wins the Super Bowl with a touchdown himself, even though that didn't happen. The last touchdown or whatever, he was going to, Taylor Swift was going to say, vote Joe Biden, which is a pure, fantastical, very silly idea that could only be cooked up by the most schizophrenic conservatives. But now that's just mainstream politics, okay? So Yeah, none of that happened. None of that, of course, happened. But Joe Brandon came out as soon as the fucking the Kansas City Chiefs won, said, just like we drew it up, leaning into the meme that they actually cooked up the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, this, in my opinion, is going to probably cause a bunch more people to genuinely lose their minds, probably go on a decapitation spree, or fucking it is obviously just a joke. Yes, of course is a joke. Obviously is a joke. What do you mean? No, I don't really think Joe Brandon cooked up the fucking Super Bowl. Shut the fuck up, liberal chatters. Jesus Christ. Okay. And I think it's the type of joke that like plays well for the normies in general too, like liberal normies in general. But apolitical people might get mad at it because they're just disappointed in the administration across the board. But my favorite part of this is that I think personally, right-wing reactionaries who are already at the precipice of snapping, this is their 13th reason why. Okay. This is like the straw that breaks the camel's back. I foresee right-wingers. Oh, wait, hold on. Short on time. I'm live already I'll call you now. Dude, I feel so bad. Oh, okay, let's go now. I'm sorry, I got the time confused. Oh, he thought we were supposed to do it at 12 probably. All right. I'll bring out Marc Lamont Hill now, and we'll talk about the Israeli ad and many other things. I'm going to give him a video call real quick. Start my virtual camera so we can see me. Hello.
Hey.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's crispy as hell. Marc Lamont Hill, everybody, in the building. Well, not in the building and not in the flesh, but this is the best we're going to get for the time being. I'm very excited to have you on. Hold on. Let me just like do a little bit of live production because I've been live already. Normally, I usually just have like other Twitch streamers and stuff on. So
Yeah.
they're it's just I always forget I have to like describe this to someone who lives in the real world and does like actually important and good work.
This is important work too, man. I'm learning there's a whole streamer world out there that I didn't know anything about.
Yeah, no, I've look, Marc, I've been a massive fan of yours for a very long time. I remember you getting booted from CNN, which was very frustrating. For saying from the river to the sea, Palestine would be free at the UN. But for those of you who don't know who you are, would you mind giving us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, man. I am a lifelong student activist. For the last 20 years, I've been a professor, scholar. I am a journalist as well. I think my day job, I'm a professor at CUNY University, City University of New York Graduate Center, where I get to hang out with amazing students, and I'm, I do my thing over there. I'm a scholar of the Middle East, as well as race in the United States, and also carcerality. I focus a lot on mass incarceration. So, and there's some overlap and intersection there too. For the last maybe 15 years. I've been a journalist as well. I've hosted at HuffPost Live. I've hosted at BET, VH1. I was a contributor for CNN, as you mentioned, and Fox News at one point. And I continue to be one at Al Jazeera.
Yeah,
where I am a host up front, the show up front every week.
Hell yeah. I mean, look, you've done incredible work. You also, I did not know this until recently, you also speak Arabic as well.
Yeah. I'm an anthropologist, and my field work, my recent field work has been in East Jerusalem, in the African quarter of East Jerusalem. And so I spent a lot of time, studying Afro-Palestinian communities, among others. And yeah, the language is part of the field work.
Yeah. So of course, with a serious background such as yourselves, We're going to be talking a little bit about some serious stuff, and then a whole bunch of not so serious stuff. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. So
Love that.
let's start off with the more serious stuff. Yesterday, while the Super Bowl was happening, Israel decided to around the same time decided to start bombing Rafah, which was coming up for, I guess, like a week. They had signaled that they were going to start bombing Rafah. Rafah is the southernmost point of the Gaza Strip, for those of you who do not know, and it is the area that is supposed to be like the last remaining safe space, because they originally forced the Palestinians to evacuate from northern Gaza, saying that there was going to be a military operation there, into southern Gaza. Then they started bombing different parts of southern Gaza all the way into Rafah, which is where the Rafah border crossing is with Egypt. It is literally the southernmost point of the Gaza Strip, where currently the estimates are that there are more than 1 million Palestinian civilians remaining. And this was a particularly bloody campaign, as far as I understand, that also coincided with the Shin Bet doing a special operation to rescue 2 hostages simultaneously. And the cost of that was more than 100 Palestinians that were killed ruthlessly as a simple distraction. So 50 of them specifically in the bombing campaign, but 100 total. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and where you fall on this. I mean, and you know, update people as well on the issue.
Yeah, we're in an extraordinarily depressing, dire. I wish I could say unforeseeable, but I won't say that. But a depressing and dire kind of moment. What's happening in Rafah is especially troublesome right now. You've laid out a big part of it. You know, Israel's campaign. Ultimately, if we begin from the premise that Israel's campaign has not been to wage war on Hamas, but to wage war on the Palestinian people, and to ultimately achieve the goal of depopulation, ethnic cleansing, etc., then this all tracks. It's kind of the only way this makes sense. Everything else will confuse you if you don't begin from the place of understanding that, you know, colonies going to colonize, right? And so the move from the south to the north, or from the north to the south, has not been without serious peril for Palestinians from the beginning. The whole argument was, oh, we're the most moral army in the world. We're the most principled army in the world. We give you notice. We do this. We do this. And what we have found is, in some ways, they've explicitly abandoned their strategies of things like roof knocking as a way of giving warnings. And they've said, like, look, you know, after October 7th, we ain't warning you about anything, basically. And then there were the people.
Roof knocking in and of itself is already like a pretty ridiculous practice, but it was, in my opinion, done specifically to obviously market Israel's actions to the Western world as though they are the most moral army. And like what you're saying is like liberal Zionism is just gone as a concept at this point, post October 7th.
Right, and they've used October 7th as a pretext to say, look, we tried this liberal BS. Now we're going to just have to go, you know, whole hog. And for those who don't know, the idea of roof knocking is to drop a kind of a munition on, you know, on a structure, a house, whatever, as a warning to say, hey, get out within X amount of time. The problem is X amount of time is not enough time, and oftentimes they don't even observe the rules that they say they're going to follow, which has been the challenge of the evacuations from the north to the central part of Gaza and from the center to the south, is that, you know, oh, you got 72 hours, and then within a few hours, people are getting hit. Or you got 72 hours or 24 hours or whatever, take this road, and then you take that road, and that road gets hit. And so the humanitarian corridors, the pathways to safety, the shelters, the hospitals, the masajid, everything that's supposed to be safe are not safe. And so against the backdrop of that, you see people now in Rafah. And so people are now in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, which again is very dense. You're talking about 25 miles long, 5 miles wide. And you got these people who are there ostensibly for shelter. And you have to understand, Rafah is supposed to have maybe 250,000 people, 200,000 people, and that's still dense. And now you're looking at over 1 million people there, 1.2 maybe million people there. And they're there ostensibly for safety. And now, because the Israeli state has decided that this is a Hamas breeding ground, and it's littered with violence and terrorism, that now they're going to do ground invasions there. They're going to continue to strike there, and so they're now asking people to move north, 20 kilometers, about 8 miles. Except now they have nowhere to go. They have no way of getting there. Lots of children with no parents. Lots of people with most people with no vehicles. 1.7 million out of 2.2 with no house, no shelter. It's freezing cold at night. We could list all the things that make movement almost impossible, and then the very pathways that they're taking to safety or to ostensible safety are littered with violence. And so, and by every measurable index, any further violence, any further military invasion into Rafah will lead to a humanitarian disaster. That's according to independent bodies, human rights organizations, etc. And the Israeli government once again has said, look, we'd love not to do it. We really aren't into this whole genocide thing. However, Hamas, they're everywhere. They're leaving us with no choice. And so as a result, what's happening in Rafah is kind of the culmination of the last 4 or 5 months, which is a war not on Hamas, which by any measures would be a failure, but instead a war on the most vulnerable people of Palestinian society. And so any response we have right now, as we see another mosque destroyed, as we see hospitals being sieged, as we see more innocent people dead, is we have to demand an immediate ceasefire in order to prevent something worse from happening.
Yeah. There are people in the chat saying that this wasn't actually a real hostage operation. The hostage operation was earlier, and that the Israeli government is simply claiming that it was a cover to provide cover for the hostage operation. So I want to issue. I want to make sure that you guys understand this. I should have said this is the Israeli military's reasoning, claiming that they were killing at least 67 people, according to the health ministry, so that they could provide military cover as Shin Bet rescued 2 hostages. Now the problem is, according to Haaretz, I don't know, chatters, if you have the Haaretz article saying that the 2 hostages were released on the 2nd of February, so that was actually 10 days prior. That would be pretty ridiculous if they were actually rescued 10 days prior and it wasn't a different operation that you guys are confusing with. However, as you all know, there's always a lot of post hoc rationalizations and post hoc evidence gathering, evidence in air quotes, whenever there's something going on that's specific. Israel always finds, CNN will write a report on 16 cemeteries that are desecrated. And then the next day, the IDF will be like, actually, here's a Hamas headquarters under a cemetery. That's why we had to destroy 16 cemeteries, right? And it's really interesting how that always happens. UNRWA, which has been a burden, a thorn on Benjamin Netanyahu and far right Israeli sides for the crimes of keeping Palestinians alive, hiring 13,000 Palestinians, being like a major lifeline for many Palestinians, because it's not just a UN-backed organization, but one that actually hires Palestinians directly and plays a big role in their civic life, right? With schools and whatnot. This is a organization that Israel has routinely criticized and wanted to abolish, eviscerate, destroy. And then after the ICJ decision, which also, of course, featured testimonials from UNRWA workers and whatnot, Israel very quickly offered what I would, I guess, in the most liberal way possible, describe as misinformation to claim that 12 out of the 13,000 UNRWA employees were actually collaborating. 13 were actually collaborating with Hamas on October 7th, and therefore this organization needs to be cut. This organization's funding needs to be cut, which, additional investigation found out that much of that information was also untrue, yet it doesn't fucking matter. And now they found another Hamas headquarters, like a base of operations directly under an UNRWA facility. That's what Israel found recently. So they do this all the time. There's always something that comes right after people criticize whatever specific thing Israel has done.
Yeah. timing is always this timing is so absurd that you would think the rest of the world would notice, right? On the day of an ICJ decision, suddenly this UNRWA dossier gets revealed to the mass public that discredits the United Nations altogether. I mean, it's ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, and so it's it's very harrowing. Another thing that I wanted to cover before we get to the Super Bowl ad that ran, and before we talk about Joe Biden's like dark branded memes and whatnot, and the reception of it, and how tone deaf it is, because simultaneously this like bombing campaign was occurring. That's what he was. The administration was too busy tweeting that out after they like put together a funding package, a separate funding package for Israel to the tune of what's 14 or 17 billion dollars. That they separated from the prior border bill that they were trying to pass, which was also reactionary and right wing in a totally different way. There's also another story. I don't know if you're familiar with this. The story of Hind Rajab, 6 years old, who was also executed. Yeah, and the way that the British media covered this story, I'm actually kind of surprised that this hasn't gotten more coverage overall. But this is a 6-year-old that was, I guess, found dead in Gaza days after phone calls for help. And the way this article utilizes neutrality as a weapon,
voice.
Yes. Yeah, I've never seen passive voice to this degree. Like I've talked about how the IDF not only ironically trains cops and vice versa, but that like the media, the mainstream press in the Western world basically writes about the IDF as though they are the police. Dealing with the people of color, and they utilize passive voice in an identical way. This is the most maxed out version of said passive voice here. I'll share my screen with you as well, so you can see what I'm looking at here. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on the story of Hind Rajab real quick?
It's a really disturbing tale for a few reasons. I mean, one obviously is the actual death itself, right? When this young woman was child, was killed or was died in this car, the only one who survived from an attack is in and of itself problematic. I hear I'm starting to hear right wing Israelis and other people say it was Palestinians who killed the family. I have seen no evidence of that. And we saw this girl. We have audio recordings of this girl actually making phone calls, trying to get help. And one of the challenges in this moment, we saw this with some of the journalists who were killed in the last month. Even when you look at like the family of you see like even when people are killed or not killed and they're looking for medical help, there's blockades, there's physical obstruction. It's impossible to get the kind of support that you need. And in this case, she lost her aunt, her uncle, she lost cousins. And once again, when you look at the overall Palestinian child population, tens of thousands of it are now parentless or guardianless because of the amount of people who have been killed in this. And so one of the things that we've all been outraged by in the last 24 hours, last 48 hours, of course, has been the way the headlines have been like a little girl found. In fact, here's one right here. I'm looking now at what you posted. A 6-year-old girl who went missing in Gaza City last month has been found dead, right?
Along with several of her relatives and 2 paramedics who tried to save her after they appeared to have come under fire from Israeli tanks. And even in that situation, like you're burying the lead in the subtitle. I don't know how that's even possible. That you openly admit that it's like
before they weren't even mentioning the Israeli tanks. It was just like 6-year-old girl found dead in car.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The title is Hind Rajab 6 found dead in Gaza days after phone calls for help. Like as though this was like an earthquake or something.
Right. Right.
And she made phone calls and not that this was a car that was attacked by Israeli tanks, and then the Palestinian Red Crescent made efforts with an ambulance on the evening of January 29th to find Hind Rajab after phone calls that she made, because they believe that she was trapped in the vehicle in Gaza City with 6 dead family members, and the A group said that they had been killed by Israeli fire deliberately. And the Red Crescent statement on Saturday also accused the Israeli forces of bombing the ambulance as it arrived just meters away from the vehicle containing the trapped child and killing 2 rescuers inside.
Yep.
It said this happened despite prior coordination between the Red Crescent and the Israeli military. We know that the Israeli military also has snipers trained on people that they wound deliberately and then shoot civilians that try to recover the wounded and try to save the wounded. They openly open fire on civilians that are trying to help out other civilians in any part of Gaza.
That is a fact. And again, these aren't outliers. This is the norm at this point. Help is cut off. Innocent people are being killed in houses, in cars, in shelters, in hospitals. And, Amnesty International just today, in fact, talked about the results of several investigations of homes that have been bombed and cars similarly that have been shot. And they say that there's no legitimate, they haven't found any legitimate military operation, no legitimate combatant, no legitimate target to justify this type of violence.
Yeah. And there rarely ever is, but I'm saying, like, be on the lookout for post-mortem slander for how 6-year-old Palestinian girls are also somehow Hamas.
Yeah, she was part of a Girl Scout troop that was connected to Hamas.
Yeah.
Or the car itself
like
was disguised as Hamas. I mean, like at this point, it's so absurd. And part of what they also do, and we saw this in the States, with the civil injunctions against gangs, was they had these initiatives where they would, put people on gang lists and watch lists if you had a gang affiliation or a gang connection. But I mean, what does it mean to be connected to a gang if you live in South Central Los Angeles, right? I mean, everybody's 1 degree of separation from somebody, And similarly, in an area that's dense, where Hamas is the democratically elected ruling body, they control various dimensions of the state.
Yeah.
And they're on the ground. It's damn near impossible to have a job, to be employed, to live somewhere, to be a human being and not be 1 or 2 degrees of separation directly from the people that the state are trying to kill, or that the Israeli state is trying to kill. And so you can make a case that anybody has a Hamas affiliation. Anybody's loosely connected to Hamas. And so when they kill our journalists, they can say, oh, well, they were part of Hamas. And you find out they just worked at the radio station.
Yeah.
And so similarly, they'll say, well, that car got hit. The girl, at best, they'll say, well, Hind was, we didn't want to hit the 6-year-old girl, but everybody else in that car could get it. And because they had Hamas connections. And that becomes the pretext for all sorts of indiscriminate violence.
Yeah. It's completely unacceptable. It's ethnic cleansing through and through. And it is a damn shame that the Western world, the Western leadership, specifically the United States of America, is not only not doing anything about this, but also offering full support, full-throated support, as a matter of fact, like cutting off UNRWA funding when America is the largest funder of UNRWA. A day after the ICJ court decision was, in my opinion, a very deliberate, very straightforward statement that they were making about how we do not give a fuck about the international rule-based order unless we are the ones who are writing the rules and we are the ones making the orders, which is something that I truly do think America believes. It's just such a clear demonstration of that reality, however. Yeah, this is pretty awful. But like I said also earlier, here it is. As far as the bombing campaign in Rafah, the IDF and Shin Bet have been working, according to Barak Ravid, the IDF and Shin Bet have been working on the rescue operation for several weeks based on intelligence. The operational opportunity came today. The Israeli Air Force conducted heavy airstrikes in Rafah as a diversion to allow the extraction of the 2 hostages, which, once again, ridiculous to claim that, like, in order to save, quote unquote, 2 hostages, you had to kill 60 people, like 60 civilian Palestinians, men, women, children, elderly, specifically to do that. And it's gross. I don't think it even works, but I don't think they even care at this point because nobody gives a shit. It's seemingly like the people that care obviously are protesting, but those in positions of power do not care. And
October 7th, and they never cared, but October 7th destroys the pretext, right? So now you can just say, what happened to us was so awful that anything that happens in retaliation is appropriate. I mean, I've been told that effectively by Israeli government leaders and representatives and former leaders. They say, well, why are you asking me about roof knocking? Why are you asking me about humanitarian corridors? Why are you asking me about hospitals? Did you see what they did to us on October 7th? And because they're advancing the narrative of Palestinian brutality and barbarity, then the world community goes, oh well, you did that. We can't get mad if anything happens to you. And I would argue, and international law certainly supports the idea that even if the worst things imaginable happened, you still have to follow the law. You still have to follow the rules of war. You still have to follow the conventions. But we also know that many of the things that Israel claimed has happened have also not been substantiated. So it's on multiple levels troublesome.
Yeah. So let's get to the Super Bowl. So this last bombing campaign happened during the Super Bowl. I think some people were saying like, oh, they did it during the Super Bowl deliberately. I don't think so. I think it's just consistent. They've been doing it all the time. They've been doing it nonstop. I don't think they timed it against the Super Bowl, even though, yes, the Israeli government absolutely does care about like Western eyeballs on the situation, and like the those in positions of power in the West, at least, like they want full-throated support from. So they care about like massaging the narrative to a certain degree, even though they do a horrifyingly bad job at it. What do I mean by this? Well, I think it's because they're callous, they're careless, and they're very comfortable with that full-throated support that they've gotten to this position where they've completely dropped the pretext of even like liberal Zionism that tries to cleverly manufacture consent, and they're just straight up doing whatever the fuck they can and demanding to the world follow through. And one of the examples of this, and I think this is really interesting, is the fact that obviously Israel gets a shit ton of funding from the United States of America to the tune of almost $10 million a day. Barack Obama on his way out signed a $38 billion 10-year security package for Israel. They get a lot of funding from the UK as well, but specifically there's a lot of funding that comes from for the military side in Israel, but then there's also a lot of defense. So what does Israel do with all that funding other than killing Palestinian children? Well, some of the funds at least goes back to the Israeli ministry making an ad for the fucking Super Bowl and buying a Super Bowl ad slot so they can recycle the narratives that like, no, they need the funding and they need the support over and over again as they are personally killing civilians, killing babies, killing children in Gaza with our weapons, with our funding. So let's watch this ad real quick. This is the ad that ran during the Super Bowl. Let me make sure. Oh God, the quality is 480p. Damn, not getting enough bang for our buck here. Okay. It's called Bring All the Dads Back Home.
To all the dads, the funny ones, the silly ones, the strong ones, the adventurous ones. To all the dads held in captivity by Hamas for over 120 days, we vow to bring you home.
Sponsored by the State of Israel, hashtag Bring All Dads Back Home. This was the State of Israel ad that ran. Now, I've been saying this since fucking day one, and it's incredibly frustrating to see this ad because it's like the Benjamin Netanyahu war cabinet does not give a fuck about the hostages, okay? Beyond using the Israeli prisoners of war and the hostages as a talking point to continue justifying their ethnic cleansing campaign, they don't give a shit. They so don't give a shit that most of the opposition in Israel to the IDF's actions, right, come from the hostage family members who have been demanding a ceasefire for months now, and the protests are growing and growing and growing, as a matter of fact, in Israel. Now, obviously, that's still, there's still plenty more public support, overwhelming public support in continuously pummeling Gaza, specifically from all the polls that come out of the Israeli Palestinian citizens of Israel population versus the Jewish population of Israel. The Jewish population of Israel according to their own demographics, of course, have simultaneously had overwhelming support for the bombing campaigns and have demanded more to the tune of like 95% or something in recent polling. So beyond that, though, there are still thousands of people that are protesting, and these guys are out here talking about bring all the dads back home. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think you've captured it pretty accurately for the most part. Now, I might disagree with whether or not they care about the hostages. I think there's a way that they actually genuinely do care about the hostages, because I think that unlike Palestinians, they see them as people. And I think that there is a fundamental kind of humanity that they can recognize in their own countrymen and women that they can't see in other people's. And I think that's a kind of problem that lots of nation states have in these types of matters. But I agree with your larger point that this campaign is less about the hostages and more about normalizing a certain kind of understanding and disposition toward the Israeli state as it continues to prosecute this war in Gaza. And so, you know, as we watch it happening and we see people bring the dads back, and it's in the middle of the Super Bowl, you now have the mainstream American public. I didn't watch the Super Bowl, but, you know, almost every American is watching the Super Bowl, and they're now accepting this narrative as the normative one. There's not going to be a counter narrative offered. There's not going to be, in the same way that the ICJ decision, most Western media didn't show South Africa making its case. They only showed the Israeli government responding.
That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly getting fed a single narrative, a single diet, a diet of a single narrative. And so that's very, very dangerous, very, very troublesome. So when we see that, and a bombing is happening at the same time, effect more or less, the timing is questionable. I think you're right. So many bombings happen, so many strikes happen, so much shelling happens, so many sieges happen that, I mean, I could equally say they did it during the rerun of Friends. Oh, they did it during the Action News, local news. Oh, they did it during morning TV. Oh, they did. I mean, there's always something happening. And so I think you're right. I don't necessarily think that they timed it with the Super Bowl, but the fact that it happened during the Super Bowl and the only information we got access to by the mainstream corporate media was that Israel really wants to bring dads home, is really dangerous. And because the pretext of Rafah is that it's a hostage saving mission, it only reinforces that in a very subtle way, right? They're not saying, hey, we're in Rafah right now kicking ass to save dads, but you can connect your own dots in the same way that on the day that the ICJ announced its emergency measures, Israel didn't say, don't listen to them, they hate us. They just at the same time, on the same day, issued a report that UNRWA and other UN organizations are corrupt and responsible for October 7th, at the same time that their highest court is making a ruling. So again, the dots are, the pieces are there, you connect your own dots, and American politicians and American government representatives are more than happy to connect the dots for us as well, as they stop UNRWA funding, as they will say, hey, what's happening in Rafah isn't great, but we still support Israel's right to defend itself. Still keeping in place the framework, even if we're finally willing to push back just a tiny bit and say, okay, that might be just a little too much. 28,000 people dead is just too much.
Yeah. So that was one aspect that I wanted to talk about. The other aspect was also Joe Biden's tone deaf tweet talking about how, just like we drew it up, Joe Biden's team obviously making jokes about how the Democratic Party is actually responsible for the Super Bowl being rigged so that they can help, so that Taylor Swift can go on the field and kiss Travis Kelce, who's a liberal, and then they can say, like, vote for Joe Biden or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what kind of like right-wing mania will come out of this. I mean, I'm excited to see. I'm a little worried. I assume there will be like at least a couple people that end up, if things go as they have so far, at least a couple more right-wing QAnon guys are going to go and like do YouTube live streams of like their patricide decapitations or whatever, as the media conveniently ignores that and rarely discusses it, so they can like yell about, I don't know, a couple of migrants in New York that got beat up by cops or whatever. But
right.
I wanted to hear your perspective on this. Like, what do you think? What do you think will happen? I guess in the American election, considering how Biden has been received so far by even the Democratic Party, and how he has treated the situation in Gaza thus far.
Yeah, I think Biden is holding tight to the strategy that, hey, being lockstep with Israel has never failed an American president running for office, right? Like you don't lose an election because of your stance on Israel, because of your fidelity to Israel, right?
Yeah.
So he's taking that posture, but I think with every campaign, whether it's cast lead, whether it's protective edge, as the campaigns continue, the access we have to what's happening on the ground continues to expand, and as a result, more and more people are frustrated. And so you now see young voters who aren't going to support this. You see progressive and radical voters who aren't going to support this. Are they going to vote Trump? Probably not, although, an argument could be made by some people that at least he was not an interventionist in a certain kind of way. I think what you're going to see is a lot of people who just stay home. You're going to see a lot of people who vote third party. You're going to see a lot of people who are just dissatisfied. And then, I mean, if you look at even in Michigan, where, he was going to Dearborn and Ann Arbor and other places, and the Arabs were like, yo, no. Like, there's nothing you could tell us to make us vote for you. There's absolutely nothing you could offer us that makes sense. And so don't even show up, right? I think there will be a lot of people who may not have that explicit claim or that explicit warning to the president, but their voting patterns will be the same. And so I think Palestine, I think Gaza in particular, is going to be an issue that severely impairs Joe Biden's ability to successfully run for president.
Yeah. I guess my opinion on it is that.
Hey, give me 5 seconds. I just gotta let somebody into my door. I just realized.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
I can hear you still.
Well, yeah, no, it's fine. I'm gonna be talking anyway to my chat, but what I've said over and over again, I think, is that it's not even just that Biden isn't like sufficiently pro-Israel or sufficiently anti-Israel, but rather Biden's wishy-washy approach to Israel. As on the one hand, he talks about how like Israel needs to cut it out, Jack, but also simultaneously offering massive weapons packages and behind closed doors seemingly offering no red lines, even though he claims that he's trying to get Israel to make concessions. In my opinion, shows a lack of having a clear-cut direction on the issue of Israel, which then makes him look weak. What do I mean by this? I mean, there has been polling done on the matter. Trump currently leads Biden by 10 points on the issue of Israel. Why? How is that even possible? Well, that's because, in my opinion, that when I look at those numbers, it's partially, one, because Trump is currently not president, right? So there's always a big benefit to that. And two, the second reason why I think Trump is leading Biden by 10 points on Israel is because Trump is consistent, at least, on the issue of Israel, whereas Biden shows inconsistency by claiming that he wants peace, claiming that he wants a two-state solution, as Benjamin Netanyahu routinely undermines him. So I think it plays into Biden being too old and asleep at the wheel, and the narrative that his biggest weakness, basically, is that narrative. I think the way he's handled this issue plays into that as well. Not to say that like voters are single issue voters on Israel Palestine. I mean, maybe in Michigan, but some in Michigan. But overall, like, it's not. Americans don't give a shit at all.
Right. That's 100% true. That's 100% factual. And the thing about Biden is, yeah, he's asleep at the wheel, and I'm sure lots of things are getting past him. But he, more than maybe any U.S. president that I've seen in my lifetime, because Reagan didn't give a shit about this. Reagan was trying to punt on Israel every chance he got. George H.W. Bush was probably one of the stronger people on Israel. Obama, wasn't exactly a profile in courage, but he at least was willing to to punt a little bit. He was willing to abstain from UN votes and such. But Joe Biden's like, I'm a Zionist.
Oh yeah,
he's an unabashed guy. Yeah.
Have you heard the reports? Like, I think it was like in the 90s or something. Like after the beginning of the Lebanese invasion, where he was like, Yeah, no, I would do even more. I would be even more genocidal. Like he was to the right of Israel at a certain point on these issues, which is like crazy.
It's wild. I didn't even know that was possible, but he absolutely was. And
Yeah.
so when you have that kind of um, position on the matter, it takes a lot. It takes a lot for him to be willing to restrain. The U.S.'s position basically since after the Suez Crisis. I mean, really, that's probably the last moment of major U.S. resistance to Israel was 1956. Since then, the U.S. has only grown increasingly lockstep with Israel in all things. And the tactic and the strategy is now is to not show any disagreement. That there's not an inch of daylight. That they're shoulder to shoulder. All the stupid metaphors.
Yeah.
And so, Biden already has that against them. Um, but you'd hope that behind the scenes he'd be pressuring them. And from what I hear, there has been some behind the scenes pressure for a ceasefire, but the U.S. has no leverage. The U.S. has literally no leverage. And while he certainly wants to court left wing voters, and he certainly wants the young college students to say, "Hey, we're on board with you," he's far more concerned with looking weak on this issue. He's far more concerned with Trump being able to move him. Trump being able to move him, because if Trump moves him on this issue, if Trump moves him on this issue, you run the risk of Jewish voters, Jewish American voters who overwhelmingly vote Democrat, of saying, "Look, times have changed. This is an extreme exception to our rule, but we're going to go Trump." That's another worry that Biden has, or just that the general centrist voter who sees this issue as a sign of a bigger unrest in the Middle East, and they're worried about Iran, and they're worried about this, and they're worried about that, and they're going to say, "You know what? We're sorry. We have to go elsewhere for our vote." I think Biden is more concerned with that than losing the extreme left wing or than a 19-year-old college student vote. And so, Biden's in a tough spot here as somebody whose primary interest is in controlling the empire as opposed to making the world better. And I think that's why you're seeing such a weird kind of calculation here, where they're starting to whisper. I mean, Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, has always kind of said, to Israel, "Hey, like, if your goal is to get rid of Hamas, this ain't the way." I think Anthony Blinken has become increasingly vocal as well. And now in the aftermath of the ICJ decision, they can at least just parrot what the ICJ says, "Hey, just take all cautions, right? To make sure this isn't happening." And I think that's given them a language and a kind of escape hatch to talk about this thing in a different way. But ultimately, I don't see Biden saying anything significantly different.
I don't
see
know
Biden.
why you're. Wait, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but you said that America has no leverage. I actually disagree on that. I do think that America has a lot of leverage. I think that at least the American track record has shown time and time again that, like, when America makes a phone call and tells you to cut this shit out, like, Israel usually follows through. There was a point early on when Yoav Gallant was the defense minister, was questioned in a press briefing in Israel as to why they were allowing food trucks and humanitarian supplies to actually go into Gaza, because originally they had blockaded it, if you recall. And Yoav Gallant said, "Well, America said we have to do it, so what can we do?" And I think that has been consistent. Biden has actually stopped in 2021, made a phone call and told him, "It's over, cut it out, we're done," to stop the bombing campaigns. And I do think that if we wanted to, like the United States, if we collectively wanted to put an end to this, I think we have a lot of leverage.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not being clear. Yes, the U.S. has actual leverage. I mean more as a practical matter, given what they're not willing to do. If the U.S. right now said, "Hey, the 17 million or the 14 million hinges upon you all following, billion, excuse me, hinges on you all acting right," then yeah, sure. If they said, "If you don't do this, we're going to publicly rebuke you," of course. If they said, "Look, we're going to use our UN Security Council power and authority and vote to rebuke you all," then sure. But I'm saying we know that the U.S., even at its most quote unquote courageous, is only going to abstain. We know that they're never going to condition money on anything. And I think Netanyahu knows that Biden is vulnerable here on this issue. I'm saying as a practical matter, Biden doesn't feel like he has much leverage.
Yeah, and it's wrong. And that's the issue. And I think that is literally translating even to apolitical voters who don't give a fuck about Israel in general as weakness. Why does it portray as weakness? Because all of these like quote unquote leaks that come out from the Biden administration of like, oh, he said Netanyahu's a son of a bitch behind the scenes, or he's like very upset at Netanyahu, like all this shit actually reads as him being a bitch, because Benjamin Netanyahu does not care about Joe Biden, regardless of how much of a rugged Zionist Joe Biden has actually been. Benjamin Netanyahu very openly does not give a shit, and has kind of done his very best, I would say, to ensure Biden's chances of re-election are diminished from the limited positions that he has by regularly going on television and saying the exact opposite of what Biden is saying the day prior. Like Biden will be like, there's going to be a two-state solution. Like there has to be. Benjamin Netanyahu goes on television and says, there will never be a two-state solution. It's done. We're not doing that. That's not going to happen. And then they go back to Biden. They say, what's going on? You said there's going to be a two-state solution. Benjamin Netanyahu says there won't be. Biden comes across even more old and more feeble and more senile, where he's like, oh, well, there will be. There's different kinds of two-state solutions. So I think like that's why there is this in the minds of the American public who care about the optics more than anything else, and certainly don't care about like brown children being pummeled with our munitions overseas, because that's the American way. I think that they do see an old man asleep at the wheel, and this reinforces that narrative. And I think it's a major misstep, even from like, even if I were to, I guess, put on my Democratic Party consultant hat for a brief moment here and talk about it from like the upcoming election and how it looks and how it reads. Horrible way to go about it.
Oh, I think it's an absolute awful way to go about it. He would look better standing tall, but again,
he would be better. I said this too. He would be better if he was like unconditional support for Israel. Like if he's just saying like, no, Israel has a right to defend itself over and over and over again, and didn't go above and beyond and like maybe talk about like dead babies or whatever, or even if he did, I don't know. Ultimately,
I mean, he goes so to the extreme, of saying that he saw things and did things that just didn't happen, that I think he loses all credibility with left-wing voters. And again, he's never going to be seen as sufficiently tough to right-wing voters. And I think other people are like, mind your business, you know, the Trump folks. So I'm not convinced that any of this. I'm not convinced that any of this works out well for him. And for Netanyahu, a Trump presidency is the ideal outcome, because Trump is willing to do whatever. Right? He was willing to actually not sign the waiver for the Embassy Act. He was willing to cut the funds for UNRWA. Now, again, Trump is not a new form of American foreign policy. He doesn't represent a shift in American foreign policy. He's just American foreign policy on steroids.
Yeah.
But it's still an important distinction to be made.
I'll say like, I think the major difference here, and I believe this wholeheartedly. I think Hillary Clinton was awful, but I don't think Hillary Clinton would have done two things. I don't think Hillary Clinton would have assassinated Qasem Soleimani, and I don't think Hillary Clinton would have ripped apart the Iran denuclearization agreement. I think like liberals oftentimes, with the exception of Joe Biden on the issue of Israel-Palestine, have a much more like still very bloodthirsty, but more restraint, more tactical way of engaging in American imperialism, whereas Republicans are very open and very honest, all the way from neocons to Donald Trump, who claimed to be a peaceful dove and not a war hawk, and try to present himself as such, while also, of course, greatly accelerating drone strikes and you know, an unauthorized assassination of a relatively important figure in a foreign adversary after throwing apart I would say the signature Obama era foreign policy achievement, the Iran denuclearization agreement. So they like, I don't think Hillary Clinton would have, they would have definitely continued along with the Abraham Accords. It would have been a little bit different probably, because that normalization already exists. They were just putting it on paper. Yeah. But overall, I think this is a big deviation on the liberal side of foreign policy with Joe Biden.
I mean, he's about as hawkish as a Democrat you're going to get in office. I mean, I can't imagine anyone more. Clinton ain't far, but I think Joe Biden doesn't even pretend. He doesn't even have the pretense of not being these things. You know, he's pro-cop, he's pro-war, he's anti-busing, anti-reparations. I mean, he's made enough of a case for himself that it's not difficult to make it clear to people that we're on the wrong side of this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not good news. This is not a sign of optimism here. I feel ready to see another Trump presidency. Let me be clear. I don't want one.
Yeah.
I've just accepted that we're moving in the wrong direction and that we're likely going to see one. And that's going to mean a lot of things for a lot of people, but it's certainly going to mean hell for the Palestinians. And any kind of peaceful solution will be, I don't know. It'll be so remote. And frankly, by the time we have a November election, given what is happening in Rafah, and given the conditions that we see with more than 50% of buildings collapsed now, 1% of the child population killed and growing, 10% of the population either dead or maimed, 65% of we're going down. We could going down the list. I don't know what's going to be left in November.
Yeah. It's liberals got abortion. They can keep pumping that. You know what I mean? That's that is the major motivator at this moment and will be coming up in the election cycle. But even then, that's I guess that's like taking advantage of a massive loss of civil liberties in this country, and there is never any positive messaging surrounding why you have to vote for the Democratic Party over the Republican Party, whereas the Republicans are running for re-election every single day and not just once every 4 years. And Democrats remember that they have to like win votes every 4 years and have no counter messaging for the issue of immigration, for example, and the country continues to go further and further right wing with
reproductive justice is probably their best bet for that reason. It's like they're stealing your right to choose. But do men show up for that, right? The border stuff doesn't work. Education stuff doesn't work. This Palestine thing isn't going to work for a lot of mainstream voters. I mean, reproductive justice is one of them. The Supreme Court more broadly is still an abstract idea unless you have a concrete issue. Affirmative action ain't getting white people up. I'm not optimistic, man. I got to run. But we got to do this again soon, bro.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on, by the way. FD Signifier hooked this up with Marc coming on. Marc, I've been a big fan of your work for a very long time. It was a real honor to have you. Sorry for yapping for too long of this interview, but I wanted to also go through the news as well.
I love the exchange, brother. Let's do it again real soon, like in the next week or two, man. I would love to do it.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much
for making this happen. Yeah, thanks, bro. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. That was Marc Lamont Hill, everybody. Academic, scholar, activist, journalist, incredibly well decorated, knows what the fuck he's talking about. Phenomenal guest. And it truly is an honor to have someone like him on. Yeah, he's also cool as hell. You should do a new political podcast with him as the co-host. Yeah. What is this? Mark popping off on Genocide Joe? Let's watch one of his highlights.
I can't
Here it is.
sit here calmly when I watch these preachers. Ooh, Lord God. And these bourgeois Negroes who will allow the church to be used as a shield for empire.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Last week, there was a protest in the Great Mother Emanuel AME Church in South Carolina. A beautiful church, a historic church, a church birthed out of struggle, birthed out of the struggle of the African Methodist Episcopal tradition, which is built on saying black folk have a right to preach the word of God, and not just to other black folk. Black folk have a right to full humanity and full participation. Don't tell me you love God and you obey the commandments of God and the word of Jesus and tell me that black folk ain't got the same rights. So the AME Church is a church of struggle. And it's also a church of tragedy. We know that Dylan Roof went into that church and killed 9 beloved saints as they were praying. So I was a bit struck last week when I saw that they opened the pulpit up to Genocide Joe. Y'all can get mad, I don't care. And people, as he...
How come we never seen Marc before on the broadcast? I've watched a lot of his I watched a lot of his videos in the past. I've also defended him many years ago, even when he was many years ago when he was unjustly taken off the air from CNN when he was a contributor for his speech at the United Nations, as a matter of fact, where he ended the speech by saying, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. He is the GOAT. He is he's great. I mean, he's brilliant. Yeah, I don't know. He's a real treasure, I would say. I'm gonna stop glazing him up this hard because I'm a big fan. And once again, shouts out to FD Signifier for hooking it up, because I found out that they were friends and he had collaborated with them before, and I was like, yo, dude, you have to set this up. You're blowing bubbles, Law? Bro, shut the fuck up. He's brilliant. Okay, suck my dick. The same with, dude, this is one of those situations where it's like, for me, like the fact that I can get someone like him on, the fact that I can get Jeremy Scahill on, like these are people whose work have, in my opinion, like they've shaped my worldview. You know what I mean? Like these are journalists and academics and people that like I've known about and have cared about and think are, you know, legitimately important people in the discourse for a very, very long time. What the fuck does blowing bubbles mean? That's some Zoomer thing or a weeb thing, not a 32-year-old shut-in thing, lol. Blowing bubbles means you're sucking someone's dick and you're blowing bubbles on it. That's what you're blowing bubbles while you're sucking on a pee-pee. Okay. Yeah, I admire these people. Yes, 100%. Anyway, it's like these people who also like, you know, they put their money where their mouth is and then gotten punished for it even. Same thing for Norm Finkelstein, as a matter of fact. Like I have significantly more disagreements with Norm on many other issues, right? Especially like his other writing, his writings on like, I don't know, woke culture, identity culture, and things of that nature. I think like I don't agree with, but it doesn't matter. This is a person who has dedicated his entire life to the Palestinian plight and is one of the most important scholars on the fucking planet when it comes to accurately explaining what the situation looks like in Gaza. Okay? So, yeah, he's great. Brandon's talking about Gaza again. Is he live? Is Brandon live? Did you have a take on the Kanye album? No, I don't, because I didn't even watch. I don't know anything about the I didn't listen to it. I barely even knew that it was out. But I also don't really listen to music. If your worldview leads you to support the Palestinian cause, then it must be a righteous view to some degree.
We pray for those lives taken, both Israeli and Palestinian, and for the grieving families left behind. Not only do we pray for peace,
we're going to get to the Super Bowl in a second, peace, and it'll be a lighter load, don't worry.
For both the Palestinian people and the Israeli people. And I'm working on this day and night with the king and others in the region, to find the means to bring all these hostages home, to ease the humanitarian crisis and to end the terror threat, and to bring peace to Gaza and Israel. then enduring peace to build something more enduring.
Just a
Over
little
the
bit
past
better.
month, I've had calls with Prime Minister Netanyahu, as well as the leaders of Egypt and Qatar, to push this forward. The key element of the deals are on the table. There are gaps that remain, but I've encouraged Israeli leaders to keep working to achieve the deal. The United States will do everything possible to make it happen. The King and I also discussed the situation in Rafah. As I said yesterday, our military operation in Rafah, the major military operation in Rafah, should not proceed without a credible plan for ensuring the safety and support of more than 1 million people sheltering there. Many people there have been displaced multiple times, fleeing the violence to the north, and now they're packed into Rafah, exposed and vulnerable. They need to be protected. And we've also been clear from the start. We oppose any forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. Today, the King and I also discussed in detail how to get more humanitarian aid into Gaza from the very beginning. My team and I have relentlessly worked to get more aid in. I urged Congress for months to make sure that our nation's support for Israel and also includes urgently needed aid for innocent Palestinians. And I've spoken repeatedly with partners across the region, including the King, to help facilitate the flow of such aid into Gaza as much as possible, and then to actually get to the people that are needed. We work to get the Rafah crossing open, we work to get Karim Shalom open, and we insist that both remain open. We're working to open other routes as well. And we're also working relentlessly to make sure aid workers can get the aid where it's needed once it gets through. I want to recognize Jordan and the King specifically for all he has done to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza, including just a few days ago. He personally got in a plane and helped conduct an airdrop of urgently needed medical supplies into Gaza. I understand that 2 of his children have also joined those airdrops. They help fly humanitarian supplies in. And for years, the Queen has been a passionate advocate for the Palestinian people, particularly women and children. Your family's leadership, Your Majesty, and humanitarian commitment are commendable. And at the same time, we're working to create the conditions for a lasting peace, as we talked a lot about upstairs. With the Israeli security guaranteed and Palestinian aspirations for their own state fulfilled. I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel. That's the only path that guarantees Israel's security for the long term. To achieve it, Palestinians must also seize the opportunity. As discussed with the King today, the Palestinian Authority must urgently reform so it can effectively deliver to the Palestinian people in both the West Bank and Gaza. Once Hamas's control of Gaza is over, they must prepare to build a state that accepts peace, does not harbor terrorist groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And together, we will keep working to complete what we started, to integrate the region, to bring about peace between Israel and all its Arab neighbors, including the Palestinian state. That effort was already underway before.
Another reason why
October 7th
Biden seems
attacks.
weak and human is that he never
It's
really
even
seems
more
upset or
urgent
angry
today.
at any cause when his old man
No
cursing
one,
was a personal
no one
gripes.
understands better than our allies and partners in the region, including the King, what we need. I'm grateful to him for his friendship, including his and Jordan's unique role, a custodian of the holy sites in Jerusalem. We're grateful for this friendship. We saw that again just 2 weeks ago when 3 brave American service members killed in an attack at a military outpost in Jordan, close to the Syrian border, by radical militant groups backed by Iran operating in Syria and Iraq. Since then, U.S. military forces have struck targets in Iraq and Syria. Our response will continue. We're grateful to our partners and allies like the King, who work with us every single day to advance security and stability across the region and beyond. It's difficult times like these when the bonds between nations are more important than ever. And Jill and I are pleased to welcome him and the Queen.
I feel like bringing up the president of the King of Jordan to talk about Palestine is like kind of indecent, especially because I feel like it's PR to get the dumbass Americans to think like, well, that's an Arab, right? They all agree. See, them Arabs also, see, Biden is next to an Arab and he's not saying swear words. You know what I mean? Look, everything seems fine.
Our countries this year mark 75 years of exemplary strategic partnership. However, we had hoped we would be marking this major milestone during better circumstances in my region and the world. Unfortunately, one of the most devastating wars in recent history continues to unfold in Gaza as we speak. Nearly 100,000 people have been killed, injured, or are missing. The majority are women and children. We cannot afford an Israeli attack on Rafah. It is certain to produce another humanitarian catastrophe. The situation is already unbearable for over 1 million people who have been pushed into Rafah since the war started. We cannot stand by and let this continue. We need a lasting ceasefire now. This war must end. We must urgently and immediately work to ensure the sustainable delivery of sufficient aid to Gaza through all possible entry points and mechanisms. And I thank you, Mr. President, for your support on this. Restrictions on vital relief aid and medical items are leading to inhumane conditions. No other UN agency can do what UNRWA is doing in helping the people of Gaza through this humanitarian catastrophe. Its work in other areas of operation, especially in Jordan, where 2.3 million are registered, is also vital. It is imperative that UNRWA continues to receive the support it needs to carry out its mandate. The potential threat of Palestinian displacement beyond the borders of Gaza and the West Bank is something we view with extreme concern and cannot be allowed. At the same time, we must not ignore the situation in the West Bank and in the holy sites in Jerusalem. Nearly 400 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank since October 7th, including almost 100 children and over 4,000 injured. Continued escalations by extremist settlers in the West Bank and Jerusalem's holy sites and the expansion of illegal settlements will unleash chaos on the entire region.
Biden should go
vast
meet with the
majority
Christians
of
of
Muslim
Lebanon next to
worshippers
see what they
are not
think
being
is
allowed.
good for the Palestinians. Yeah. Well, he's Christian too, no? Or no? I mean, is Abdullah? I don't know. Is he? No, he's Muslim. No, he's Muslim. I mean, Abdullah wouldn't be Christian probably, but he's Sunni. Come on, dude. What? My bad, bro. A lot of all of my buddies in all of my buddies in
all attacks against
Jordan
innocent civilians
that
women
I
and
knew
children,
in college
including
were all
those of
dude. I
October
don't care
7th,
about what he has to say. This is
cannot
boring.
be accepted by
We're gonna
any
move on
Muslim,
from this.
as I had previously stressed. We must make sure the horrors of the past few months since October 7th are never repeated.
All my buddies that I
nor
know from
accepted
Jordan are Christian.
by any human being.
It's all like the one
We must
percenters.
together, along with Arab partners and the international community, step up efforts to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and immediately start working to create a political horizon that leads to a just and comprehensive peace on the basis of the two-state solution. An independent, sovereign, and viable Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, but living side by side.
They're all Christian Jordanians because most Jordanians
Israel
are Palestinian refugees.
in
Yeah.
peace and security. This is the only solution that will guarantee peace and security for the Palestinians and the Israelis, as well as the entire region. Your leadership, my dear friend, Mr. President, is key to addressing this conflict, and Jordan is ready to work, as always, with you towards peace. Thank you.
The fact that Jordan is calling out everything and supporting UNRWA to the U.S. is a massive important thing. I mean, dude. As far as I understand, his take is like he'll say this stuff, but ultimately, as far as I understand, like the Jordanian monarchy is like relatively suppressive, even though the queen will come out and is of Palestinian descent and will come out and say like wonderful things. It's more so the actions that matter. And you know, it's It's basically like an American outpost or Western-backed outpost. It's a U.S. military base. Guys, the Tower 22 that was shot at with a drone was literally on the border, like on the Jordanian border with Syria. And it's an American military base, American secret military base that's like perfectly positioned, smack dab in the middle. Words can have ripples, though. I doubt it. It's a desperate attempt at Biden trying to get the Zoomer and Arab vote, but everyone knows Jordan is not a player. Yeah. I mean, it's not, in my opinion, it's not as bad as like hyping up the Palestinian Authority overall, but it's like on the same wavelength as doing that from someone who is like, if you are Arabs, Muslims, specifically, Christian and Muslim Arabs are very tuned in to the interests of Palestinians. They understand the plight perfectly. Okay. They've seen the Western side of Western imperialism. They have family members there. They understand, like, when someone in America says, like, oh, we're going to put the Palestinian Authority in power, they go, oh, fuck you. Oh, fuck you. The average American looks at that and goes, what do you mean? They're saying, like, your people will be in charge of your people. Like, that's good. Like, white Americans don't understand it. They think Biden is doing a great job when he says things like the Palestinian Authority will control the Gaza Strip. Okay? That is a non-starter for like 95% of Palestinians. That's like, are you out of your fucking mind? Are you on crack cocaine? That's why I always try to show you the actual opinions of the people on the ground. The Palestinian Authority is less popular, almost as popular as Israel is, okay, in the eyes of the Palestinians. Like they're like beating out Israel by like 2 points or something, because the Palestinian Authority is seen as an extension of Israel. And they're correct. Palestinians that say that are correct. So it's in the same line as like trotting out the Jordanian king to be like, look, you know, we care. He's a fucking Arab guy. Go ahead, see? The Arab guy. We're collaborating with the Arabs. They're all the same. It's kind of like that for lip service. I mean, maybe it'll work. Maybe it works. I don't know. For the liberal audience, maybe. So he's having only 50% Arab. So look at their flag. It's close enough. Yeah, sure. Rump state like Vichy France, as another chatter said. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the Dark Brandon stuff. Let's get to the fun portion of the broadcast.
Damn, this guy's good.